Hey guys, Mike Bland with SIS Global Investigations. I just wanted to make a quick video on basically these private investigators that I'm always preaching about. I just watched a video actually on YouTube. I will not name the names of the investigators, the company, or who they are out of being professional, but it's the very definition of insanity. And it's sad that there's people out there portraying this and also charging the same fees as a 30-year investigator like myself. That's literally done this his entire life. Worked on the street as a police officer for 20 years, worked all over the United States as a private investigator, and including the Middle East. So I have literally traveled for 2 weeks at a time with no sleep. Like I said, went to the Middle East, to do cheating spouse cases and the whole deal. I've literally worked in the worst neighborhoods you can as a police officer. I've lost, numerous friends. I have been in shootouts. I have had people try to run me over. I have carried tons of dead bodies from crime scenes. I have, put my time in. And what I'm getting at is when you see these people that say they are a private investigator internship, some young girl or guy who's 19, 20 years old, and say they're getting some degree in psychology or criminology, worked for the federal government for numerous years. Okay, well, first of all, if you're like 21, 22, 24, let's say, and that's pushing it, and you've worked for the federal government for numerous years, I'm going to have to call bullshit on that. What exactly did you do? One, if you don't have at least a bachelor's, you're not working in any meaningful federal employment job in law enforcement. And if you're that young, you probably didn't work there for numerous years. And then these people saying, well, and you can get this, online certificate also to add to all this. And you can take this online PI class for 4 hours, and I'm going to do all these things. Well, if you're an intern private investigator, which anyone can do, by the way, and you have zero previous experience and really no even formal education yet, and you're saying you're online and you're telling people how to become a professional investigator, and you're offering your services, there's so many things wrong with that scenario that I'm almost speechless, literally. The fact people are going to these people for advice on how to seek out a career as an investigator shows how insane people really are at this point in time. The fact people think that they're in a position to be giving how-to lessons on how to do anything when they know nothing is equally insane. Everybody does have to start out somewhere, yes, but when your opening line is how to not get burned on a surveillance operation, and the very advice you give is the exact way you get burned or you blow your cover, a person has to ask, what is going on? A person also has to ask, if that person is doing an internship and someone taught them that, and that's an actual private investigation company, also what is going on? Again, I always talk about this. when you've put your time in and you're a professional, you know who's who in the zoo. The minute someone starts talking and the words come out of their mouth, I'm sorry guys, but you just can't fake this stuff. You can't fake being a professional investigator. I don't care what online seminar, PI class you took for free that says you're now a professional detective. It doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. People have called me for the last 25, 30 years also asking how to be a private detective or how to be a police officer, or I'm 21 and I want to go into that career. What do I do? Well, here's my advice. Here's my straight up advice, what I would tell if I had a son or a best friend or best friend's son or anyone else, or daughter, obviously women, going to the military, police work, and private investigators, just as much or more than guys. So, and also I will throw that in, inject that in there, by the way, is some of the best investigators I've actually seen, probably actually, it's not always the big burly guy that's, you know, been in military police or police officer like myself all the times. Women are some of the most thorough, detailed, relentless, brutal investigators I've ever seen. I have seen where women had contacted me and told me they had wanted to be a private investigator at different points. And I had realized from talking to them in the first 5 minutes that if they were someone that had some type of formal training and guidance, they would be totally relentless. And it's just when they get their mind on something, they just don't let go. And I believe, I know the movie Zero Dark 30 portrayed that. I don't know if that's a fact or they changed the identity to protect that investigator, but the girl that plays the girl Maya as the CIA investigator, and the person that was supposed to be taking the credit for tracking down bin Laden was supposed to be a female CIA operative, and she had worked, and that's all she had worked on her career for however long that was with the CIA, until she literally, that was her only job. So when you have somebody like that after you and you're the bad guy, or a cheating spouse in this case as a private investigator, you know, you're in a lot of trouble. And the thing is, I always laugh because I said, you know, the person that kind of reminded me of myself, my work ethic and being relentless and going after the bad guy my whole career was, you know, when you see the movie Heat with Al Pacino, you know, he literally, his personal life was a total disaster. You know, he couldn't stay married. His daughter was trying to run off. Everything in his personal life was a disaster because he spent no time worrying about his own problems. He literally was always after the bad guy. You know what? And he just never slept. He would miss meals. He was up at 3 a.m. He was back on the case and going after the bad guys in that movie, which happened to be, you know, Robert De Niro and Val Kilmer and those guys. But those criminals in that case, in that movie, they became afraid of him because they knew he was the guy. They did their own intelligence on him and counter surveillance, and they found out the work ethic this guy had. And they knew they were in trouble because they knew from their experience being a professional criminal that this is not the kind of guy you want after you. If you've got some amateur cop that's just writing his report and going home at the end of the shift, you generally have nothing to worry about. When you have a seasoned professional investigator that actually likes doing what he's doing and is good at it, and he's after you, whether that is military investigations, law enforcement investigations, or a private investigator, you're in trouble. Whatever you're doing, you know, if that's the case and that's the guy, that's the kind of heat you have after you, then it's time to pack up and run. You know, that's the work ethic. That's the only way I can describe myself as an investigator. So, back to the regularly scheduled program. I don't care how many certificates you have, you watched a couple of YouTube channels, someone's letting you do an internship at their company, you know, there's just so many things misleading about portraying you can offer these services equal to a guy with my experience and with the blood, sweat, and tears, put into this, and then say you're gonna perform at the same level I am. You're gonna offer the same services I can offer, and you're the best. Well, I would like to put you up to the challenge. If you're somebody out there and you're spouting this stuff off online, then you should be able to investigate circles around me. I'm confident to go toe-to-toe with any investigator out there. I've seen federal investigators. I've dealt with the marshals, the ATF, the DEA, the FBI, the Homeland Security, Coast Guard Intelligence. I've seen all those guys. I've worked cases with them. I've turned cases over to them. I've worked with state police investigators, local investigators, other private investigators. I can tell you, hands down, I've even dealt with some military CID guys, but titles, people get misled on the titles. They think if somebody's in the FBI or the CIA or Highway Patrol that they know what they're doing. I can tell you that cannot be farther from the truth. Some of the best investigators I've ever worked with were maybe a patrolman, or sometimes other private investigators that were civilians. But the titles mean nothing. The college degrees, all that stuff means absolutely nothing. It is the guy, it's the person, their ambition, their work ethic, being able to think outside of the box, just being relentless and having a passion for what they do. Those are the things that make you good. Yes, also experience. And back to before I got off my tangent, the advice for any young person, if you want to do this, if you want to do this your whole career, you think, if you're at that young age, 17, 18, 19, 20, my first advice is I would probably, looking back on everything, I would probably, if I was you, the strategic planning I would do is to tell you, go into the military, go into a branch, and get into your MOS and investigations. Whether it's CID in the Army, NCIS in the Navy, whatever all the other branches call it, and go into that, put in some time in there doing military investigations. Get them to pay for your schooling while you're in there, get your college degree, and get that in something that hopefully applies to investigations, forensic, crime scene, death investigations, surveillance. Make sure you learn as much as you can. And then when you leave the military, I would then, you're gonna have a college degree, you're gonna have military experience. Right now, law enforcement can't even find people willing to work in the career, so it's a free-for-all. Apply for law enforcement like I did, go to the police academy like I did. And you can if you want to have a private investigations company, you can do that while you're a police officer. If you want to leave the military and then just start a private investigations company or a private security bodyguarding, you can go that route and skip the law enforcement route. But if you want to get the time in on the streets and be the real deal, which is what I consider myself, I put my time in. I put my time in on the streets. I know what I'm doing. If I'm in a bad neighborhood or whether I'm in a rich neighborhood, it doesn't matter. I know how to instantly switch gears and relate to some guy who's a gangbanger or some guy who's some corporate attorney. I know how to talk to these people. And that's something you have to be able to do in life. You have to be a chameleon and you have to be able to adapt and survive and get the lay of the land from where you're at. If you cannot talk to people and communicate, not only is life difficult in general, but you're just not going to be able to get on a person's level. And that's going to be important in a lot of scenarios. Whether you're developing informants, people are going to have to like you, and they're going to have to see they can trust you. So for me, talking to people, I've always, even when I was in law enforcement, I was always very down-to-earth natured, very open guy. So people, unless they automatically had an instant dislike towards like maybe the position I was in, generally I've learned in law enforcement as a private investigator as well, is generally speaking, if you show a person respect, I would say even a guy, a hardened gangbanger, a lot of times they're gonna also show you respect for the most part. That's not gonna always be the case. There's some really ignorant and there's some really evil people out there, but I've always showed everybody the highest level of respect, whether it's dealing with some guy in a rich neighborhood or a guy, again, who is just hardened gangbanger. If things turn sideways or they are ignorant with me, then I instantly know how to switch gears. But I guess my point I'm getting at is there's so many things you have to learn and be able to do this effectively. And the other thing is that that's where having this experience also pays off, is that you have to, it's not something you can fake and make up and say you know all this. It's just not going to work that way. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to look me up and leave a comment. All right, guys. Thanks.